American way of life. Isn't it grand? Peace, freedom, and bacon and eggs. Seems perfect. But what if it's not? Friends, your future may not be as secure as you think. Where will you be when the atomic bombs fall?
And welcome back. We are at a new and completely different episode of Revolving Culture. We are so glad to have you guys show up with us. Welcome back. We're really looking forward to this episode. We've got a lot to talk about. But before we get too far into our topic, does anybody have anything really exciting that came up this week? Robbie, anything? What really grabbed your week and nailed you to the...
So, I'm a lifelong fan of video games, along with several other people here at the table, and I want to take a moment to evangelize the rebirth of something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the video game franchise, Doom.
A lot of people talking about Doom coming out.
Yes, it's really good. Something that... You know, a lot of video games nowadays really, there's almost a pretension to them where they want to become art. And that's not to say that they can't be, but the first and foremost thing any video game really should be doing is entertaining you. And boy, does this game deliver
Really?
on that premise.
Really? I need to
Yes.
So fast-paced.
Yes. The campaign, I've only just barely scratched the surface. I've only played a couple of hours of it, but suffice it to say that it really latches on to that lizard brain part of you that just wants to see things go to pieces. Yeah, I really can't say enough good stuff about it. So for those of you who haven't yet had the opportunity, I wholly recommend checking out Doom. It's everything that the 11-year-old in you wants to see and hear, and hail Satan.
It's one thing that I don't know if I read it or I heard it somewhere, but I think it was during a review of the new Doom game. They were talking about how the previous generation of consoles and video games were about pushing the cinematics to their furthest extent. Doom and a lot of games that are coming out now, like Dark Souls, are pushing the old idea of just having fun and figuring out the mechanics of a video game. And they can still have those themes, those cinematics that the previous generation had, but we're back to having fun with video games again.
We're seeing
Pac-Man
kind of
never had a narrative.
Yeah, we're seeing a kind of a splitting point. You have things like Quantum Break coming out now that really are the focus is the story, and it's a much more passive experience compared to a great example, like you said, is Dark Souls, where it really is about we're presenting you with a challenge that you have to meet and overcome, and that's really at the heart of any good video game, especially somebody of my age who came up with them. And one of the things that older, Nintendo and Genesis and Super Nintendo era games, set them apart was the limitation, of the medium meant that they needed to make them perhaps more difficult than they necessarily needed to be, because if it's too easy, you'd be, for instance, the Mega Man games on NES, if it were too easy, you'd be done with it in 20 minutes, and that's not a very fun experience.
I
would equate Dark Souls to Mega Man.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, you've been playing. Have you been playing the new Dark Souls,
Yeah,
Jeremy?
I've been playing all three for several years now, and because I have such horrible attention span. I have not beaten a single one of them. They're incredibly difficult games.
I've only played them for 5-minute stints, and I laugh because I'm so upset.
Oh yeah, that's why I've never touched one. A man knows his limitations, and that game's going to lead to a controller through a TV screen really
they are
quick for me.
so hard, but and the Bloodborne game as well. But you keep going back for that challenge, and when you finally you put it down, in my case, for 6 months, and then you pick it back up and you beat that boss that you thought was so hard 6 months ago, and it's like one try and it's done. And then you progress, and then you get to that wall and you have to set it down again. It's very fulfilling.
It's maybe a conversation that we could probably have in more depth at another time, but it's an interesting idea. I came up in the 80s, the arcades, Pac-Man, Burger Time, these are not games with a steep narrative. You guys came up through the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis era as kids. Again, these are games with not a great deal of narrative. There's some narrative starting to creep in, Sonic trying to beat the evil doctor and Mega Man, things like that. But by and large, you're not telling a story. If you go to the Final Fantasy
games, those were very rich.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering is this next generation that has grown up with the Xbox 360 childhood, where almost every game is a story. Like, where is that evolving to? And maybe this is coming back around, and now they're going to get to experience what it's like to memorize the pattern for a game like Galaga or Pac-Man. The rote memorization. You just keep going to limited saves, put on your big boy pants, and beat that boss.
Yeah. Manual dexterity is what you need.
Yeah. To Jeremy's point, it's when you summit that moment that was providing such a challenge to you that for some people means so much more than whatever narrative experience they would otherwise be getting from a more passive kind of gameplay. And the new Doom game, it gates its harder difficulties behind the lesser ones, so you have to complete the game on the the normal difficulty before you unlock the nightmare scenario. And that's something that I'm looking forward to is throwing my head against the wall of the most difficult part of that game, and arriving at that moment of like, yes, I did it. I've met the greatest challenge in this game, and suffice it to say that's something that people of this generation can really identify with. Yeah.
Besides Stranger Things, which sort of hijacked our last episode, Andrew, what's been up with you this week?
There isn't much beyond Stranger Things, to be honest. Oh God, such a wonderful, beautiful show.
It's even pulled you away from the video games.
Yes, actually, I'm still into Destiny. It's awesome, and I feel like I'm slowly catching on to that and enjoying it a lot. But if you guys haven't watched the first episode of The Night of,
I've heard of that.
Actually, as a matter of fact, the second episode's premiering tonight, and I will definitely be watching.
Oh, they're already. I figured it was like one of those. It's 6 months from now. We'll let you see the rest of this. Oh, HBO's gone ahead.
I think it's gone through its like special preview.
Okay.
And the actual premiere was last week.
Oh, nice. So I didn't even pick it up because I'm like, that's the 6 month wait. It's nice.
The night of.
It only extends until late August.
The night of. Just the basic premise. It follows a guy and his night, and he, I guess, befriends a girl. He's driving his dad's cab, and she ends up being murdered while he's in the room. And he has no recollection of what happened, it kind of just goes through that whole night. What happened?
Is each episode going to be a new night, new character?
No. I think it's going to be like, I think we're getting into 24 territory. Yeah. This is all going to be one night.
Yeah, it's it follows up with
Without getting too spoilery, let's go ahead and so that you don't turn off this podcast right now. We are aware that many have not seen it, and we will certainly do our darndest not to to let you know the butler
Suffice it
did
to
it.
say that
Watch the
this
night
young
of.
man finds himself in a very precarious
predicament.
situation.
And it involves a woman.
Yes,
That's really not a spoiler.
Yeah.
That's every show
Yeah.
ever made.
It's every life.
So that's kind of what you said. That's kind of what you've been up to.
I've had to be since Wednesday night. Tonight's Sunday. Since Wednesday night, I have had just a streak of great television. So the night of, I watched Wednesday night. Thursday, I watched Shameless, which they just put on the American version that they put on Netflix.
Oh, nice! I didn't know.
And we binge watched a little bit of that, and it's a great show. If you like,
You've also
balls
been
to the
watching
walls,
Jane the Virgin.
yeah.
Oh, it's outed by the better half.
Okay, it's a good show. It's not
Sell
in
me
my
on this
ballpark.
because everything I've seen, I've been like, yeah,
It's not in my ballpark. It's not something that I really enjoy, but it's well made. I understand like the choices, the art direction in it, but it's not something I enjoy.
Hey, Jackie and I, my wife and I, we watched an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians just to see how bad it was because we had never seen it before. And she went to bed, and I finished the episode. And then I watched another one. So
You sir have
Sorry if I
the
spiked
constitution that I do not, because I caught like maybe during its initial heyday, I have this weird thing where like I tend to try when something really hits the cultural zeitgeist. I think I've got to at least know what this is about, and sometimes that leads me down some dark alleys like Left Behind. But, which is a fine set of books. I made it through 11 of them before I decided it just wasn't for me. But oh yeah, it's like I said, sometimes my like desire to try and understand what's culturally relevant is kind of a miss, but I'm bullheaded enough to like, I've got to figure this out. And then
be
sometimes
clear
it's like
that
Harry Potter.
11 books in.
In
there's
no
something
way
liked
is this a
about it.
recommendation that any of you.
No.
Read.
Blowing Culture
No.
The
podcast
Left
does not
Behind.
stand behind this.
In no way do we endorse the Left Behind lineage.
In closing, about the night of, it's really, really well made. The way they highlight, you'll while you're watching it, you'll notice that they highlight the things that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Chekhov's guns in that show. Yeah. Don't worry, this will
It
come
does-
back
yeah.
around.
Yes,
yeah.
watch it. I'm good.
Jeremy, what about you? What's between last week and now? What have you been up to?
Besides keeping up with the Kardashians.
That's
Now that-
He
what
has
else have you been keeping
now,
up
are you
with?
keeping up with Kim
Besides
Kardashian
the
or the
Kardashians?
Star Trek villain, the Kardashians?
The Kardashians with a C.
It's,
Is it with a C?
I think it's with a C.
Now there's a missed opportunity.
Oh no, it
Keeping
wasn't
up with the
missed.
Kardashians.
It's a joke I heard a lot in the early to mid 2000s.
I don't. Well, talking about Star Trek, I'm excited for the new movie. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm glad that I don't know much about it because I'm not a fan of movies that throw all their best scenes up in the trailer.
Yeah, put all the sizzle in the trailer.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm a little worried about this new series. I've heard that it's going to be online streaming only. It's like CBS Online.
Oh, I'm sure that's a cash cow that CBS Viacom is
Yeah.
going to monetize
Yeah.
to their.
This is a Star Trek?
Yeah.
It's going to be a series that's
not
set
Star Trek
after the
Endeavor.
original series.
No.
but not have anything to do with the new movies. It's going to be in the original universe.
So in the canon universe,
Right.
Does anybody find it upset, or I don't know, maybe not upsetting, but strange that as soon as Star Trek gained traction with popular culture or with the mass audience, Star Wars released like the killer?
Well, to be fair, that in the late 70s, that went the other way. Star Wars comes out in 77, and the
And then
world
they
goes ape
released 9
gaga
Star
over,
Trek movies.
and somebody went like, "Get the Star Trek cast back in front of a camera."
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how old they are, and then so you get Star Trek the movie, and then I think maybe that's when, because that's really the first. Since the original show ended in the 60s, that was the first Star Trek anything. So you're talking about a good 10 years probably.
Was Star Trek the movie before Next Generation or after?
Oh, much before.
Well
Much
before,
before.
yeah.
The Star Trek, the motion picture is 79,
and then
maybe.
90 something.
It's like maybe a year after the
Yeah,
first
Next
Star
Gen
Wars.
started in 89, 90, something like that, early 90s.
Star Trek Next Generation, yeah, probably 89 would be my guess. I know early 90s. It had already gone through maybe a season or two because I was being shanghaied
it was
into
earlier
watching
80s.
those episodes. But yeah, I'm thinking like maybe late 80s. So excited about Star Trek.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm kind of guarded about.
I don't know how it's going to go. Like, who's going to be handling it? Who's going to be running the show? Who's going to watch it if it's only going to be on a subscriber-only network?
I did not know that.
I can see CBS looking at, because CBS Viacom, especially when it comes to Star Trek, seems to see it more as a cash cow, almost really, than as a serious franchise.
Yeah.
Like they're not looking to be philosophical about it. They're,
Right. They just want to get the money where they can.
yeah, that's probably not a bad. The only thing I'm thinking of is if it really gets too crazy, well, Vicky, what's been going on? I'm sure you've been playing a lot of video games this week.
Doom, I'm just like crazy for because
Yeah.
it's like
It's so good.
Stuff's blowing up.
and you like do stuff.
A little
in it.
backstory on Vicky. She does not play video games.
I like that one game we were playing the other day, the puzzle game.
Oh, Inside.
Yeah. I like puzzle video games, like Little Big Planet.
Little Big Planet is not stupid.
It's not. It's wonderful. I loved it. But that's the kind of video games I like.
So besides playing Doom and Puzzle Dungeon, what else has been going on with you this week?
I've been bullet journaling. Guys, if you're not on this bandwagon, you need to get on it.
Yeah, I am. This is the first I have heard of bullet journaling.
It's been going on, I want to say, for like the last year and a half. The creator is this guy, Ryder Carroll. And I want to say he's a journalist, maybe? Yeah, I could be wrong
bullet
with that.
It would make sense.
Bullet journalist.
Being
yes.
bullet journaling.
I think his idea, he had to take a lot of field notes, so he wanted to be able to sift through it quickly. And the idea of a bullet journal is you can take any blank journal or diary or anything that you have and create a daily planner from it. And use it as much as you want, use it as little as you want, use it to like your benefit, to your life, the best way that you can. And instead of buying like a planner and not using it and like having a lot of empty pages or wanting to start in the middle of the year, you can just use this method and take any blank book and then just start.
So it's more than just like writing notes. I mean, I noticed you kind of showed us a little bit of it.
Yeah.
You're using like iconography, doodles, pictures, all of these things that mean something to you.
Collections is one of the things that he puts, like books I need to read, or if that's something that you want to keep track of.
That's kind of cool. A very stream of consciousness sort of journaling. That would be really cool because it gives you kind of insight that maybe you didn't even have in yourself of like, hey, why did I draw a picture of this bowling pin? That's why I
exactly.
drew a picture of this bowling pin.
One thing I did notice is every day I was writing, read 2 pages of this or read 5 pages of this. And I was like, this is my daily goal. Like, I need to be keeping better track of this,
That's really cool.
Hey, Vicky,
Yeah.
I think I may have been bullet journaling before it was cool.
Jeremy is we now have the bullet journaling hipster. And
Sorry. This is...
that's it. Yeah.
dude, Jeremy was on there before anybody else.
You need to Google bullet journaling. If you go to YouTube, it's like a rabbit hole. You just
It has its own
won't
website.
stop.
Apparently, it was
Yeah,
a
you do.
Kickstarter campaign.
It was.
So they're trying to say, instead of buying into the marketing of paper specifically to be used for scheduling yourself,
Yes.
you can use any scrap of paper, and we're going to market that to you, and you buy into that.
He does sell like
His own.
yeah. I think it's a Leuchtturm
$25?
1917
I'm going to drop a big load of
$25.
bullshit on it.
But he
This
also
podcast
puts
is in no way affiliated with.
he also states like you can do this with anything. Like you don't have to buy what I'm selling you.
It's
You
just
can do this with
whatever-
anything. Yeah.
He's just asking you to be inspired.
I feel like there's an app for that somewhere.
It's called Evernote.
I think it's in the creation right now. Like he wants to create an app for it. But it's pretty interesting. It shows you like how to make an index, a future log, and collections. And this is like lingo specifically for bullet journaling, but it's amazing.
Well, this is where we've hit down a side street that I don't think any of us had ever heard of before. As a fan of the first Matrix movie, I'm more of a fan of bullet time journaling, in which you very slowly get out.
We will be talking about the Matrix later on in this episode.
Really, as far as my week's been going, there's a little bit of Stranger Things. For whatever reason, I've gone back to Oblivion. I mean, we had the announcement that Skyrim Remastered's coming out, which has got me really excited because those Elder Scrolls games account for, as much as I play video games, they still account for 98% of all the time I have ever spent playing video games was spent playing this. Cause I'm the ultimate like video game tourist in an open world game. I'll do everything I want to do and then go, I suppose they've got a story they'd like to tell me. Maybe it's time to experiment with that. And for whatever reason, I'm almost more excited about the remastering projects than I am anything new coming out. Skyrim Remastered, the Bioshock collection is coming out, which I am really excited about because we're talking Utopia and Dystopia. Those games were really, really focused in on that kind of stuff. And in fact, that's probably as good a time as any for us to look at doing that. We are going to get into Utopia and Dystopia this episode, and we'll get that started right after this. Come back with us.
Somewhere on the abandoned highways of tomorrow, where law is another word for vengeance. I'm gonna blow him away! It is blood! Where justice is a forgotten memory.
We're 100% snafu!
And order lies shattered in the ruins of civilization. Somewhere up ahead, a hero is waiting. Max, the crack interceptor for the main force patrol. I am the Night Rider! I am the Night Rider! His power is a badge of bronze. The Night Rider. Remember him?
Welcome back to Revolving Culture, the podcast about culture and how it revolves, apparently. We left off, we'd mentioned Bioshock, which segued nicely into what is our topic for this week, which is Utopia/Dystopia and all of its myriad appearances in popular culture. Bioshock, like we said, is a pretty dead-on nail. The first Bioshock game we were really talking about, is it really, I'd heard somebody say Ayn Rand was really what that was. That was the logical extension of her philosophical. Andrew, as kind of being our resident, real passionate about this subject matter, why don't you kick us off? We'll be talking about Utopia and Dystopia.
Research shows that dystopia is categorized as an undesirable or frightening community or society. These works are influenced by world events that are taking place during their creation.
Again, where we're getting back to, because you had Bioshock, which was the Ayn Rand dystopia, and then Bioshock Infinite really more almost was the dark side of Utopia, because you arrived there, whereas everybody had already kind of fallen apart in the original Bioshock game. Bioshock Infinite was like everyone was really happy where they were and really hadn't realized that there's a dark side to this society that they've that they've created.
With the first Bioshock, when I played it, I really got a sense of this perfect world that had been constructed but failed and fell apart and turned into, well, I wouldn't say that the first Bioshock turned into a dystopian setting, just more of a nightmarish playground for evil monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I think where a utopia has just a blissful, almost it just functions.
Right.
The idea is that it just works and it's seamless. I think a dystopia still has to have that functionality. It can't just crumble.
Right, that foundation of sort of utopia.
I don't know enough about Bioshock, and I'm sorry if I'm interjecting.
And your apology is accepted.
You can get away from Bioshock. That's okay.
But is the idea like the world's coming to an end? That's what's going on?
Not exactly. It's a world that was supposed to be built in a certain image.
Okay.
As a city, really, more than a world.
Yeah, it's a world apart from the rest.
When you're talking about,
which I feel like is common with utopia. It's really just like an isolated area, right?
Exactly. And whenever you're talking about utopias and dystopias, they almost go hand in hand, whereas a utopia is built on the idea that things can be made perfect.
Right.
But human identity shows that there are always flaws. That's why we have the thought of human error whenever we talk about things going wrong.
I mean, utopia, I can't even remember who said it, but it's like utopia can only exist if people have no opinion whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And really, if we're going to have a conversation about dystopia and utopia, I just feel like first on the list is kind of, and we've touched on it a little bit. What is it that makes a utopia become a dystopia? Because like we said, it kind of has to have that foundation before it all falls apart. What do we think are kind of the hallmarks of that dystopia, and where do we think it's going to reach the point where you're on the downside of that roller coaster?
The human existence.
Yeah. I think a lot of the times, as far as like literature and films go, it's like love. Feeling like an extreme emotion.
It's the human spirit. It's the ability to create and to feel. Because with a person can be driven to do basically anything if they have the freedom of choice. Like a dystopia is built on
freedom.
Yeah, so to elaborate, I think, on what Andrew's saying and what Marty was, the question that Marty ultimately asked, which is what creates, what allows for either a utopia or a dystopia to exist. And I think it's, in the case of a utopia, it's an abundance of something, and in a dystopia, it's the deprivation of something. So, in Vicky's example, she really is looking at the human component of it, and so there are a lot of dystopias built around the idea that you're not free to express yourself. You're being silenced, or you're being observed to where you can't. There's no intimacy. Yeah. So a really broad example would be 1984, where you're under constant observation and you never are permitted any privacy and intimacy, and anything that you do or say is subject to the government, and the government is shaping your very existence.
Yeah.
I have I think a pretty good modern example of both utopian and dystopian that I didn't think about before. I've been rewatching the show Dollhouse recently, and if you've ever watched it, it's about these people who sign away their lives for a certain amount of time to become basically soulless vessels for other characters to inhabit and fulfill jobs for other people who want to hire them. When these people aren't occupied by these other working characters, they meander about like just happy, blissful people without opinions, like you said, Vicky. But also they don't really express themselves as people do. You know, they express themselves more like limited children do. They don't have privacy. They shower together. They sleep together in groups. So, to your point where you were talking about dystopia, where there's this lack of, this absence of all of these things that we consider human rights, in this utopia of Dollhouse, all of those things seem to be absent as well, but it's this extremely peaceful environment.
Yeah, it's almost a zero-sum thing where, you know, there might, you know, in one society there might exist, you know, a really perfect blissful experience, but that comes at the cost of you know, depriving others of something.
There's an interesting book series John Scalzi wrote called the first book's called Old Man's War. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the basic genesis of it is mankind has joined the greater interstellar community, and they've created colonies all over the universe. And they started populating those colonies first. Like the rule was the only people that could go be colonists were those from, you know, deprived or third world countries or countries, you know, burdened with overpopulation. They got first dibs. You know, so how, in order to sort of incentivize someone to go out and protect them, they started this thing where you could kind of go down to your local recruitment agency and you signed some paperwork that said when you turned 65, you showed up, and they essentially took what made you inside, and they pulled that out of your 65-year-old body, and they placed it into a patented, you know, genetically created sort of super soldier body. And you agreed then to, for the next 10 or 12 years or whatever, you served in this military. And then at the end of that, you got to go ahead and join the colonists. And one of the things that it addresses is if you die before you're 65, part of that contract is they get your body. So now your body becomes a vessel for like your likeness aged 25 or whatever becomes the vessel for somebody else's consciousness. And it gets into, like, the main character gets into his wife and who got her because she passed away before she was 65. It's a really, really good book, but it's kind of, they were like endeavoring to make a utopian society out amongst the stars. And they sort of began it by going, let's take the sort of least, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here, least privileged, to start with them. And then if the privileged want to get out there first, they're going to have to do their time for it. Wow. And it kind of, it blossoms out from there. It's like 3 or 4 books in this series. It's really, really good. If you get a chance, give it a try. Which brings up another question is, should utopia be something we should be striving for? Is it really a desirable, you know, means to an end? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
I mean, in short, no, right? I mean, it takes away your free will in most cases, as far as like,
yeah, what are you giving up to get to that utopia? Is maybe that.
Well, the ideas behind utopias are created because the creator sees something wrong in their own existence, like whatever. So it's not an ideal because as an idea, utopia and dystopias are there to shed light on the matters at hand. Like they're not there as an ideal within themselves. Not something that we should strive for, but rather a way that art reflects the problems that we face in every day.
like a cautionary tale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think utopia can necessarily be achieved by humans because, you know, by our nature, what makes us interesting and what, you know, separates us from all other life is our consciousness and our, you know, opinions and our variedness. You know, you look at any other animal and they're functionally the same. There's not political parties of squirrels,
right,
for instance.
Right.
And they could conceivably achieve a utopia because they could conceivably all pull in the same direction. And Andrew mentioned, you know, like a utopia is born of the idea of somebody saying there's a problem that I want to solve. And I think that if I solve that fundamental problem, life will improve, for all included. And if you can solve enough of those problems, you achieve a utopia. But I don't think it's possible for humans because we are so varied, and that's what makes us interesting.
And I think maybe, and we talk about the fall of utopia. What eventually makes it is because if you're going to look to nature for utopia, you're looking at anthills and beehives,
and honey badgers.
And so that's what makes a utopia not desirable, because to be in an anthill or beehive is to serve the queen.
Yeah, you could conceivably please all of the bees all of the time, but you'll never please all of the people all of the time.
That's right.
And so
we are not born of like a singular.
We have a lizard brain. we have a lizard part of our brain. And I can't think of a cooperative society of lizards.
Yeah, the lizard part of our brain could conceivably, achieve a utopia, but it's our consciousness, our, for lack of a better word, soul, and our desires differ so much from person to person that you'll never find a cohesive, there are basic needs that need to be met, obviously.
There's always going to be
shelter.
Someone as well who's wanting of it.
Yeah. No matter the situation, someone's going to be disapproving of it. So is it worth it to try to strive for that?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I wanted to bring up, in Serbia, I learned of this group, called the Church of the Last Testament. It's led by a guy who took the name Vissarion. He, I believe in 1990 something, he left his job as a postal worker, I believe, took the name Vissarion, and claimed that he was the second coming of Jesus. He was a reincarnation of Jesus. He basically developed his following, and then they all took to the woods, and they live 100+ miles away from civilization. There are no alcohol, no smoking, no vices of any kind, no money, no monetary system. Everybody, if you come out there, you build your habitat and you help everyone else. I don't even know if there's a bartering system. I think it's just based on helping each other. To me, that's a real world utopia. I don't know how long it'll last.
The cynic in me thinks that there's a dark side to this somewhere.
Then they're usually, when it comes to these, for lack of a better word, cult followings, cult sects, cult groups, usually there is a dark side. Usually the leader is a criminal of some kind. Usually, they're up to very bad things behind closed doors. So I don't know, but they've got 4,000 people living on this settlement. And that's as close as we can get to. It seems like real world utopias either don't work for very long and they can't get very large.
Yeah.
And that gave me the idea that we've been having this whole scare about artificial intelligence and robotics getting to a level that we need to fear and possibly overpowering humanity. But what if artificial intelligence got to the point where they could decide what the most efficient, positive way was to operate, and that was a utopia, and they formed this perfect society and left humanity in the dust? So there was this perfect, I'm just letting my imagination flow.
No, you say that, but really when we're talking, because we also kind of want to talk about sort of real world sort of versions of utopia and dystopia. And I think if you're going to talk about, examples in popular culture, I mean, you're about a foot and a half away from Blade Runner, which I think is really, I think we can all agree that maybe when you're talking dystopia, if you're not mentioning Blade Runner, you're kind of talking out of your backside. So as far as a kind of a ham-fisted segue, admittedly, as far as like real world inspired dystopias, anybody got any lines on some examples besides? I mean, we've talked about some of the games, and we've talked about Blade Runner very briefly.
Well, I think for any example of certainly a dystopia, at least you can look at the climate in which it was born in. at the time that the creator of that particular piece of fiction,
Right.
Brought it forth, there was likely, some circumstance that led to, its creation.
I've got 2 words. North
By all
Korea.
means, yeah. North Korea. Yeah.
You laugh, but it certainly
Yeah.
looks like North Korea. Blade Runner looks like North Korea.
To an outside observer, perhaps like an alien visiting Earth, they might look at us and if they're trying to find a criteria for a utopia, part of them might look at North Korea because those people are all pulling in the same direction, but they're being forced to,
Right.
to go
It's
back to
dystopia.
your example of this Serbian person, it's a lot of I'm just gonna use the word cult groups, can achieve what's could be considered a utopia because of the charismatic personalities at the forefront of them who can get everybody to start thinking the same way, because the only thing that stands in the way of that utopia is dissenting thinkers who say, I don't want what you want. Yeah.
Well, at that point, doesn't the dystopia then sort of run into the absolute power corrupts absolutely? I mean, that's maybe a key to when it starts that downhill slide. I mean, maybe that's why we haven't been able to attain any kind of a utopia, is because inevitably one has to rise above the herd.
Yeah, you're right. In as much as whatever direction a society would be going in for a utopia is probably in service of one person more than it is another,
And
that's human nature. That's
with the Vissarion in Siberia. It is, I guess, thinking about it that way, it's not really a perfect utopia because they are in service of this person they've deemed as their ruler and their god.
It's his society, but not necessarily
His utopian
theirs.
society, certainly.
Yeah, he's getting what he needs, but is everybody's else's needs necessarily being met? If you were to get them in a candid moment and say, is this really what you want? How many of them say, well, yes, absolutely, this is what I want?
Andrew, you look like you had something on your...
Well, I was just going to speak to Blade Runner, at least.
We should.
It was obviously based on Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep? Which might have been...
Electric Sheep.
Electric
Sheep,
Sleep, sorry.
actually.
I'm dreaming of Electric
Electric Sleep is a song by Clutch. The opening track to Pure Rock
and
Fury.
androids may very well dream of that, too.
But no, it came out in 1968 during the counterculture movement, civil rights movement. The book's obviously about the replicants trying to gain power within the social constructs that
they want their civil rights.
Exactly.
Is really the...
And then later on, whenever Blade Runner came out in 1982, you're dealing with Reagan coming to power and the divide in socioeconomics, which you probably wouldn't see until later on in the decade, but maybe it was just a precursor to what was going on at the time.
No, I think when you're talking about literally from the point in 1980 that Reagan's elected, they're almost immediately after that becomes a complete separating of the haves and have-nots. And it just starts getting wider and wider till eventually you have comic relief with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and Whoopi Goldberg attempting to kind of switch that and get some awareness. Because really, in the early part of the 80s, it was sort of like lemmings happily going over a cliff. There was very little in the way of real pushback. We just come out of Nixon, Ford, and then, Jimmy Carter had attempted in the late 70s to try and make things better. And I depending on where you fall in any particular ideological side of that fence, he either was successful or was hampered by partisans. But I mean, that was getting wider. And I think Blade Runner probably came out at about the right time when people were really starting to kind of get sick of it.
I find it pretty interesting that they would use the same work to inspire an idea that, like we're saying, the civil rights movement in the late 1960s, and then in the early 1980s, they used the same work to inspire this film that speaks to a completely different idea. These things happen from time to time, like the War of the Worlds, which that was right after World War One, or I guess
It's after World War II, really.
yeah, and then the new War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg's, came out during our plight with the Middle East, and you could see parallels on either side. That's just something I found interesting on both sides.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're talking about the really hyper conservative 80s, and because that was really fertile ground for a lot. Really, a lot of the fiction that we're talking about is speculative. It's people at that time thinking like, what is the logical endpoint of what we're looking at? And as a really good example that kind of has parallels even now, I think, is The Running Man, which began as a Stephen King short story, exactly, written as Richard Bachman, and the story deals with the idea that there's an upper class for whom the suffering of a lower class, in this case, an inmate, being their plight being televised, of them, going through this really awful, manhunt game that they have to persevere through, and it's set up like a game show. So
we're saying that the next iteration of The Running Man was Cops, really?
Yeah, well, if you're looking for a real world example, that's a fantastic example. But I think that same idea that this kind of that we can be so indifferent to a segment of society that kind of conservatism breeds this divide that's at the heart of a lot of these stories. You see it again in modern examples like the Hunger Games, where that's functionally the same story. This idea of people people suffering being turned into entertainment. And
there was back in the 80s, I've been revisiting old Blue County episodes. I have got a couple of the big collections of like the complete runs, and back in the probably about mid 1983, early 1984, he does a strip in which the two kids are talking in front of sitting in the living room, and one of them mentions, like, communism says that religion is the opiate of the masses. What does that mean? And the next panel shows a television, and the television kind of in a thought bubble says it means he ain't seen nothing yet. And I'm paraphrasing, but that was you just can't escape the fact that television has really sort of fostered this, like, the lower servicing the higher, the upper 1% gets to watch the lower 99%, acting like fools, and oh, aren't they funny? Look, Bunny, come in from the pool house and watch all these crazy poor people on television. Aren't they funny?
But for a very long time, I mean, still today, it's flip-flopped where, the lower 99% watches the upper 99%, the upper 1%,
right.
on, TV or on a big screen in a movie. So.
Yeah, I can kind of, and I mean, I'm sorry, Andrew, you look like you maybe had something coming up.
Oh no, all I was going to say was the way that we watch them is in a fantastic ideal. It's like you look at them and they have everything that's the 99%
that you're working hard for.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And like MTV's Cribs, and I mean, I know that's like a decade old.
No, you're right.
It's exactly
it's
what
consumerism.
That is.
It's
we watch them in the hopes that one day we'll attain those things. They watch us to laugh. I mean, it's
but also we watch reality TV. And maybe we are watching people who we think are dumber than us or less fortunate than us. But I mean, I'm not a billionaire or a millionaire laughing at these poor folks. Like, I don't know. I don't get the point you guys are making.
Sometimes I don't get the point I'm making either. I mean, speaking to that, one of the other properties that we maybe want to talk about is Idiocracy. Mike Judge's look at, instead of a idealized future in which Traditionally science fiction teaches us the future is when science has made the world perfect for everyone and all are kind and all are good and all are smart. Whereas Mike Judge kind of came from the point of like, look, who breeds the most? The Jerry Springer audience. That's almost directly. And so what would a society be like run by the like lowest common denominator sort of brain pan? And I mean, so does anybody want to kind of look at that? Or is the reality of utopia for us closer to idiocracy maybe than anything else?
Thinking about that, was the world of Idiocracy a utopia for those people? Maybe it depends upon their bar.
That's a great point. Yeah, where it's feels like a utopia to all of these ignorant people until this person, outside of time arrives there and shows them, no, here's all the things that you're doing wrong, and that will, hopefully I can lead you to a better way, but do they really want it? Are they ready to accept
then he disrupts
what he's saying? Yeah, he disrupts it. A similar, story is Futurama, where Futurama's real message is things change, but people don't. People are always going to be what they are. It's you could almost argue, I guess it's the opposite in Futurama. It's a society where things hopefully have advanced, and you have this bumbling idiot who arrives there out of time, and to remind everyone, like, no, this is really the face of humanity is this poor sap who's.
But it also shows that the more things change, the more
they stay the same. Yeah, that's right.
And really, maybe to kind of hit a sort of sum up or a thesis point, maybe we as a popular culture need the idea of the utopia and the dystopia to give us something to shoot for and something to be aware of.
Yeah.
And so we're more likely to work towards, even making steps towards a utopia makes things better. I think we can all agree on that.
That's
and
the idea behind the working class.
Yeah.
Always chasing the carrot on the stick.
Yeah.
And maybe we need that chase just to make the world better, because standing still isn't going to lead us anywhere. But the dystopia that we're aware of is the giant gorilla in the room, and we want to make sure. So maybe it's a necessary sort of unattainable goal.
I think the dystopias certainly are, only because I think fear motivates a lot better than anything else.
That's a very good point.
And dystopias serve as a creator's warning sign for this is where we're headed if we continue this particular course of action.
I wonder how many people actually left Idiocracy actually getting the message of, for the love of God, be careful.
Well,
as a youth, when did that movie come out? 2005, 2004?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we can probably hit Wikipedia.
I remember thinking, I'm already living in this. This is.
Oh yeah, that was, and maybe that's the wake up call. Is like, holy crap! You mean it can get worse than this? And,
yeah, that's just Mike Judge having his finger on the pulse.
Yeah,
he's pretty good at that. I mean,
but
he's always been really good.
The fact that you're thinking about that, it proves that you're beyond it, because the real problem with ignorant and frankly stupid people is they don't know that they are, and they never think of themselves that way in their own minds. They're so much better, and so anyone out there who's thinking, who's ever thought, boy, that was really dumb of me, you're in a way better position than you might think you are. Yeah.
Climb that ladder. Well, I think I'm sorry, Vicky, did you have something?
I was just going to pose a question. Do you think that utopia is achievable in smaller groups, small little pods of people where everybody has their place?
In as much as what I was saying earlier about how you'll never please all of the people all of the time. Yeah. There are certainly, always going to be people whose wants align with others. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, we could perhaps create a multitude of pocket utopias,
a segmented world, maybe.
Yeah, we'll just never have a unifying one.
I think it's
called Reddit, guys.
I was going to say, with the missions to Mars and our trying to find a group of people who can work together for years and go to a foreign place completely isolated, are they going to want to strive for that utopian living situation, or are they going to try to understand each other's human needs and wants and be able to balance each other.
I guess
it's the
maybe
latter.
that question is: the mission to Mars going to create something new, or are we just exporting what we've already
Yeah, are we
got?
trying to
Armageddon.
perpetuate?
Or maybe we should
what
just
have
change
here?
the idea
Yeah.
of what utopia is.
Yeah, maybe that's going to be the gate that we eventually go through. Is somebody's going to come along, most likely in popular culture, a movie, a book, a TV series, and is going to change that notion. And then maybe we'll be just one step higher up the ladder.
You make a great point, Jeremy, because if we ever do try to colonize elsewhere, the people who arrive there, they're going to have to create their own charter. They're not going to. They might come with a basis of law and order, but it's really going to be up to
really
them,
a
won't it?
clean slate.
Who's there to tell them to do otherwise? So
And
it's going to
you
be their
might-
prerogative.
You might look at the Massachusetts Bay Company, because not necessarily the original Pilgrims. They arrived as complete separatists. The Massachusetts Bay Company arrived as a colony. They had a charter from their original destination or their original home brought with them, and then they sort of evolved that to suit their needs. And when England said, "Hey, you may not be doing what we want you to do," for all of we're part of you, we're just another colony of you, they saw this coming and went like, we need to maybe make some arrangements to stand up for ourselves, and because we want to do this. I think maybe that may be the most direct correlation between what the mission of Mars may turn into. Do you toe the line, or do you fight to defend the reality that you created in this vastly different place?
We don't want another Ghosts of Mars. What was it called?
Well, I think we're probably reaching kind of the end of this particular discussion. There's obviously, if you're talking about something like Utopia and Dystopia, this could turn into the world's first 18-hour podcast. But we probably ought to wrap it up here. We will be right back after this next break, where we may get involved in a little quizzing, and we may go ahead and hit a game before we head out of here, just kind of lighten the mood and give us something positive to get out of here on. So we will be right back. Stay with us.
I need your deck. This is a bad one, the worst yet. There was an escape from the off-world colonies 2 weeks ago. 6 replicants, 3 male, 3 female. They slaughtered 20...
A Blade Runner's job is to hunt down replicants. Manufactured humans you can't tell from the real thing.
What's this? Roy Batty. Probably the leader.
There was just one outfit making replicants that superhuman. The Tyrell Corporation.
Mr. Deckard, Dr. Eldon Tyrell.
I don't get it, Tyrell.
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. More human than human is our...
And thank you. We are now back. We're glad you stuck around with us. I thought it might be a good idea, because this is kind of a deep topic. We kind of need a breather, something to kind of decompress. I thought it'd be kind of a cool idea if we played a little game of 20 questions. Each of us is gonna come up with a dystopia / utopia in popular fiction. They're gonna have it in their head, and it's gonna be up to the rest of us to kind of guess what they're talking about. Robbie, you want to start us off on this?
Sure. My first clue I'll give is that the piece of fiction I have in mind is a film.
Demolition Man.
Good guess, but no, because I do adore that film.
Does the film have Sylvester Stallone in it? Is it starring Sylvester Stallone? That's my
It does not star Sylvester Stallone.
Vicky, do you have a
Excuse me?
question? It is definitely getting later in the evening.
Is it more anti-utopian in that they're trying to build a utopian society?
You need to give me a yes or no question, ma'am.
Is the film like dark?
What
Yes.
do you mean, like the color of
Yes.
colors in the movie?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Does the film? Let's see. That'll be my turn. Does it take place in a desert?
No.
Andrew?
Is the Was the film a book? Was it a book?
Yes.
Ooh, that's good.
It began as a book.
Is the word dark in the title of the movie?
No.
Damn it.
I have no idea where you're going with that.
I was going with Dark City.
Is there a love
that's where I would've
interest?
gone to.
Good movie.
I'm sorry, say again?
Is there a love interest?
Not really, no.
Film.
I've got a good question.
Does it star Natalie Portman?
No.
Okay.
Was the film filmed in the 1990s?
No.
Is it set on? Is it set on a train?
No.
There's only one.
It is not Snowpiercer. I'll go ahead and say that. It's not Snowpiercer.
Vicky, you got one?
Can you come back to me?
Sure. Okay. Let's go ahead and play this game. It wasn't in the 90s. Was it made in the 80s?
But it was based on a book.
So it's based. It's
was
from the
based on-
1980s.
And it was dark. It was very dark.
It was, yeah, I think our yeses so far is it is a dark subject matter, and yes, it was based on a book.
Was it
Did
made
Ridley
in the 80s?
Scott direct it?
I don't frankly know. I don't believe that to be the case. I'm gonna
means it has
answer
some
Andrew's
strong-
question as soon as I
Some
verify some
strong
research
Ridley
here.
Scott.
Is there a guy named Noah in the movie?
No,
Just kidding.
I don't think so.
You can't-
That has
you
to
already
mean there's
asked
some
it.
strong Ridley Scott influences on this. So, what's a Ridley Scott-like film set in a dystopian future?
A dark
we don't even know if it's
Blade
future.
Runner.
Yeah. Is it set in the future?
Yes, it is set in the future.
Yada yada.
Is it Blade Runner?
I'll give you this near future.
Universal
See, and this is
Soldier.
why I am so bad at
Is it
stuff like
Back to the
this.
Future 2?
Hold on. Did Jeremy say Universal Soldier? It is not Universal Soldier.
Does it take place on Earth?
Yes.
Andrew?
It's not Total Recall because that didn't take place on there. Ridley Scott-like film.
Doom with The Rock.
Does it star Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No.
Does it have like advanced technology?
In as much as it's the future, yes, there's technology present that's not necessarily
Is
extant.
Eddie-
in our
Is it
time.
Brazil?
That's
Terry
a
Gilliam?
great guess, but it's not.
Oh man, I would have put my
No,
money.
it wouldn't have been Terry Gilliam because Robbie's a huge fan of Brazil.
That's arguably my favorite film. It's a shocker that it didn't come up during our Dystopia discussion.
Have you seen Zero Sum?
I have not.
It's I
So
think
it's not
Terry
that
Gilliam's
one.
latest. Is it called Zero Theorem?
Zero Theorem. Yes, I
Theorem.
did see it. Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah.
Okay, so throw us another.
Sure.
keyword.
It's about. Earlier, one of the points I made is that oftentimes dystopias are about they come about because of the lack of something. So there is a distinct lack of something
Interstellar.
in this.
Butts.
There are no
Butts.
butts in this
What's
one.
up, Andrew?
There's a decent amount of butts going around in this particular piece of fiction.
Jeez, it's got butts and it doesn't star Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's lacking something.
Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
exactly.
That's what
It
it's
is very
lacking.
much lacking both Sly Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
My brain is not.
Yeah,
I think we gotta.
Let me try to think of some more creative clues for you.
Can you give us a supporting actor?
What's the lowest billed actor?
No, let's not get
Give me
that
one.
way because it's going to be some guy named Hank.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I won't go. I'll say this: Michael Caine is a supporting actor of the film.
Does it have outrageous costumes?
It is not Interstellar. No, people are dressed pretty sensibly.
80s.
in this.
80s. It was made in the 80s?
No. I did
It's
not
set in the
confirm that it
future.
was made in the
Oh,
80s.
okay.
Oh, I thought you did. I'm sorry. That threw
I thought
me
you
off.
did too.
No, did I? If I
Yeah.
did, I
that's where I was
apologize.
going.
No,
Let's
it was
rewind
not
the tape.
produced in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Was it
Sorry,
made in the
if I said yes to that,
2000s?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Thereabouts, I believe
Michael
that's the
Caine
case.
and
Yes, it was made in the 2000s,
In the 2000s, not the 2010s.
not the 2000s.
I'm going to have to bow out of this
Not our
one
present
because I
day.
It's
can't,
not like
for the life
Aeon-
of me, I can't think of
Aeon
anybody else got
Flux,
a line
right?
on one.
No, it's not even.
Michael Caine.
I don't know why that's where I
Michael
went.
Caine, and it was lacking something as a
Michael
dark
Caine.
movie set in the future. I can't think of Michael
They're
Caine in
lacking.
a future.
Oh, is it Children of Men?
It is. Andrew is correct.
Children of Men in my head the whole
Good
time.
movie.
It's lacking
And it's
babies.
based on a book.
And see, maybe that's why, because I have not seen that. And this is where I think I'm going to run into a problem. Is there's a huge list of these utopia dystopia movies, things that I may have not seen because I'm really lame.
Oh, Children of Men is
Point
just a
goes to
great
Andrew.
film. Yeah.
That's
All right,
for
Andrew,
Children
as
of Men.
the
Correct.
Okay, guys. We can still do a 20 questions things, but I thought it'd be fun if I could just give a slow synopsis of the film and maybe you guys
first
will-
person to
Yeah,
get
I
it.
see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so
Nice. That sounds like the way to go.
initially the film is set at the turn of the 21st century. All right, nothing there.
Metropolis.
Initially,
It's a man who's in a malaise. His life is basically just his work, his job. He
The Matrix.
The
damn
fidelity.
it, you son of a bitch! Got it. I'm sorry
Well done,
about
Jeremy.
that cursing.
That's okay.
I'm not.
We get it in post production.
I'm for it. Well
Okay,
done.
Jeremy,
Point to
your
Jeremy.
turn.
Well
All
done.
right. Okay. I don't know what year it is, but there are leaves everywhere on the ground. This world has seen a state of calm, serenity, and security for quite a while. And it's guarded by 4 or 5, I can't remember, warriors. Until Angus McFadden comes.
I am so lost.
I
On
have no idea what you're talking about.
Angus McFadden comes and upsets everything, and a boy falls into a vortex and enters the world, and he has to fight with the warriors to restore the balance.
The Last Airbender.
No.
That's good. That's the best I
But,
Is this a real
Aang wasn't
movie?
from another world.
You lost me at Angus McFadden.
That is the most Irish or Scottish. I don't know.
I think he's
Scottish name ever.
I'm
so
out on this one. That's,
One of the key words is warriors. And
Is
it's
it the
not
Cat Warrior thing?
cat warriors.
You know,
There's no
It's
cat.
a
I don't think
Aaron
there are any
Hunt
cat
Warriors. Yeah.
oh,
It's
I
a,
know what
I feel
it's
like
obviously not
I
that
feel
good.
like when he tells us what this is, I'm going to go like, oh, I think I've heard of
All
that.
right, throw
but-
some questions in.
Warriors. Was was the
Hunt?
work created in the past 15 years?
No.
Oh God, if it's what I'm thinking of, probably just older than that. I want to say like mid to late 90s. If I'm thinking something about the 5 Rings. No.
Warriors. Is it the Warriors?
Yeah, it's not the Warriors.
No. Angus McFadden was not in Warriors.
Because
come
it
out
should
and
be.
play.
Because that's a great film.
I'm out on this one because I for the
man.
life. I
I
think
feel like you're right there, though.
You've stumped me. The
What
only
did you
thing I
think it
can
was?
think of is a thing I will never be able to name. I can see like a poster, a movie poster, and that's it.
You don't have
not
any,
Akira.
any clues?
There
you
was
can
no-
ask?
No, not at all. It's one of those things I could tell like 3:00 in the morning a week from now it would hit me, but it's not coming right now. So I think I'm out. Go ahead and you've stumped me.
Anybody else have
I
any
don't know.
questions?
Yeah, man.
I'll give you one more hint.
All right.
Okay, go.
The warriors are anthropomorphic animals.
are you sure it's not Warriors by Aaron Hunter?
What is that? No,
It's
no,
not made
it's
into a movie. It's
Warriors
a junior
are-
fiction.
Yeah,
Anthropomorphic.
Or
this is
series.
frustrating because he's going to say it. I know it is. There's a kangaroo warrior, but for a gun to my head, I would not be able to give you that
It's
title.
not the
so
Teenage Mutant
I'm
Ninja
out. No. I know what he's
There's
talking
someone.
about now, but I can't get there. So go ahead. You have stumped us. What you
It
got?
is the warriors of virtue.
That's,
I am
They're all
not in the
kangaroos.
Yeah,
least
I don't know what
familiar.
it was a
Not
it was a
at all.
movie made for kids. It's freaky.
If any of you listeners actually got that,
You are better people than we.
Pat
Yeah.
yourselves on the
below
back
the-
for that one.
I still
show
think he
notes
made
for
it
this.
up.
Oh no!
I got
Unfortunately,
schooled.
I can verify it does in fact exist. Vicky, you got one?
Yeah. It's more recent. Both the novel and the film. The hero is not your normal hero. For one main reason. And that's all I'm going to say. I think that's enough. I think that's enough.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's more
Well,
recent.
is it The Giver?
No, that's not more. No.
All right, let's break it down.
Yeah.
Go first, Marty.
Is it something I don't know anything about? Maurice, God.
We brought it up once
Oh.
during the podcast.
We mentioned it. Holy crap. That means I had to have been paying attention to what I was saying. What the?
Is the hero a lady?
The hero is a lady.
Oh.
Andrew?
Does it take place on Earth?
Yes.
That wasn't Andrew. That was Robbie.
Sorry. Did not mean
Well,
to
'cause Andrew's
steal
answer
Andrew's
was-
thunder.
I didn't know who my husband was for a second there. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, this got weird all of a sudden.
Hold on. What was your question, Robbie?
I asked, does it take place on Earth? And I believe the answer was yes.
It does take place on Earth.
Yeah. I have an idea of what it might be.
I feel like it's...
Is it The Hunger Games?
Yes. It's
That was what I was saying
It's
towards.
really simple, guys.
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
By the way, let's take the time to recognize that more YA novels are featuring female leads, strong female leads, and they're turning those into movies, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, a lot of dystopic
there's no downside to that. That is
Yeah.
for sure.
I can't wait for there to be more like gay or people of color and like just mix it all up.
Paraplegics.
That's I'd watch that.
We do need some actual Blade Runners who don't kill their girlfriends.
That's because they were not doing time. All right, so it's up to me to kind of close this out. All right, let's see. Film from the 90s. Global warming is the sort of keystone that begins the story, and it's
Snowpiercer.
And it's after
Mad
and it's
Max.
after the glaciers have all melted.
Mad Max.
And no, it's not Mad Max.
Mad Max is the lack of.
I was gonna say lack of water in Australia was really bad.
Waterworld.
Oh,
Biggie gets it.
Man.
well done.
Nice.
Biggie gets it. There's got to be some love for
effortlessly.
Kevin Costner in this.
Never made that.
Because everybody.
It is the other side of the coin of Mad Max, really.
It really is. It's the anti.
Too much water. There's entirely too much water.
All right, so we've all managed to stump each other and basically prove that we're really bad at describing movies. So let's go ahead and call this one a wrap. We're gonna kind of head out. We're gonna refresh our batteries. We will be back next time. Like I said, coming up, we've got a lot of really good topics we want to hit. We do hope you'll come back and join us. If you've got thoughts on what we've been doing so far, we'd love to hear from you. You can visit us online at revolvingculture.com. You can like us on Facebook at the Revolving Culture Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter. We're at RevCult Podcast. You can search for us on iTunes. We're always there. Give us a like. We're at Revolving Culture Podcast. And if you've enjoyed a lot of the music that we've been playing in this episode, by all means, please go check out Spike Fincher. He was gracious enough to let us use some really good music. He's an excellent artist whose music really seemed to fit the mood of what we were hoping for. So if you enjoyed it, we really hope you go out there and give him a look and give him some love as well, because he was certainly generous in letting us use his original music. Pretty much just, hey, you can use it if you want. So we really want everybody to go check him out and see what he's all about, because this stuff is really, really good. For the rest of the panel, I do say again, please join us next time. We look forward to seeing you, and have a lovely week. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Bye.